The day Delaney Hartley became the most hated woman in Pinebrook Hollow started with a knock and ended with a federal takedown. It all began when she politely refused to let the local HOA queenpin, Marla Prescott, snoop around their century-old barn. That's it. No shouting, no threats, just a simple, "No thank you, Marla." But you'd have thought Delaney had committed a felony. See, Marla didn't take kindly to being told no, not when she was used to people folding like lawn chairs. So she called the cops, smirking like she'd just dropped a royal flush. But here's the kicker. The woman she called the cops on was the newly appointed police chief of Pinebrook County. Yeah, that happened. So when the patrol car rolled up and Delaney stepped out in full uniform, badge gleaming in the morning sun, Marla's expression dropped like a bad signal. Her face turned the shade of old printer paper, pure disbelief mixed with rage. And you'd think, okay, maybe that's where it ends, right? Some public humiliation, a hasty apology, maybe a lesson learned? Nope, not with someone like Marla. That woman didn't back off. She doubled down. The next day, she launched a full-on smear campaign online, framing Delaney and me as corrupt officials abusing our power to hide suspicious activity on private property. She posted edited photos, tagged every local gossip group on Facebook, even went on a podcast. A podcast, y'all. Who does that? I'm Owen Hartley, by the way. 6 months before this circus, I inherited 12 acres of old farmland from my grandfather, land that had been in our family for generations. There was a barn on it, built in 1948, all wood and rust and memory. To the HOA, it was aesthetic pollution. To me, it was home. Delaney and I moved in thinking the worst we'd face were some passive-aggressive notes about our chickens, or maybe a complaint about the unpaved driveway. We were wrong. Marla didn't just want compliance, she wanted control. She showed up with a clipboard thicker than a church Bible, quoting bylaws like scripture, and demanded we open our barn for a routine aesthetic inspection. And when Delaney, off-duty, in sweatpants, coffee in hand, said no, Marla tried to flex her imaginary badge. She screamed about official HOA oversight and community transparency. Delaney stayed cool as ice, said, "Come back with a warrant." And that's when Marla made her power move, 911. And here's where things start unraveling for her. The moment Delaney flashed her badge and the officer recognized her, Marla's whole act collapsed. She stuttered, tried to backpedal, but the damage was done. Or so we thought. But Marla didn't care about consequences. She cared about winning. The next week, she filed complaints with zoning, called the fire marshal about hazardous storage, even tried to involve animal control over our hens. But the real turn? That came from an unexpected place. Our neighbor, Mr. Wendell Carter. Wendell was a retired postal inspector, quiet, observant, never one for drama. One afternoon, he pulled me aside, eyes scanning the cul-de-sac like he was being watched. "Owen," he whispered, "I've seen this before. Marla's up to something bigger." He told me she used to be part of a logistics consulting firm that mysteriously dissolved after a federal investigation into smuggling permits and zoning fraud. Said she had a pattern: find undervalued land, harass the owners, flip the property, and turn it into transport hubs. At first I thought it sounded like a bad Netflix plot, but then I started noticing things. Black SUVs with tinted windows parked just beyond the tree line, surveying equipment aimed at our property, fresh tire tracks in the morning, and late-night maintenance trucks rumbling past long after trash pickup hours. Delaney dug deeper, pulling county records, and bam, found a forged permit requesting road expansions and storage zoning under a fake name that traced right back to Marla's office address. We brought in an old contact of Delaney's from her days with the State Financial Crimes Unit, Raina Mendez, an investigator who didn't play. Raina took one look at the documents and said, "This isn't HOA pettiness. This is organized infrastructure for a high-value trafficking operation." Turns out our land wasn't just valuable. It was vital. Hidden beneath it were old prohibition tunnels my grandfather had once mentioned, long forgotten by most, but perfect for smuggling today. We were sitting on a secret highway, and Marla knew it. Delaney went full-on tactical. Surveillance cams, document scans, heat sensors near the barn entrance. We were building a case while Marla was building a facade. And just as we were connecting the dots, another twist hit. A call from a Boston law firm. Strange, since we didn't have any legal dealings there. Turns out my grandfather had updated his will just before he passed, adding a codicil that referenced federal cultural protection for the land due to its historical significance. He'd hidden original maps, photos, and even correspondence with a preservation society in the barn behind a dusty old tractor manual. Those documents? They were the nuclear option. If verified, they'd block any development on our land permanently. That night, someone broke into our property. Delaney and I heard the rustling near the barn, saw flashlights cutting through the fog. By the time we got out there, they were gone, but they'd left behind gear. Real tactical stuff. Marla wasn't just trying to scare us, she was moving up the timeline. We handed everything to Raina. Within 24 hours, federal agents were quietly stationed around the neighborhood, recording, watching, waiting, and just in time. Marla made one last visit, this time flanked by two suited men who looked like they'd stepped out of a cartel documentary. She tried to serve us with legal papers, claiming we were obstructing regional commerce interests. But when she mentioned a shipment arriving before the next full moon, well, that was enough. Delaney gave the signal. The agents swarmed in, quiet, precise, unstoppable. Over 40 arrests across 6 states followed, including Marla, her business partners, and several HOA board members. They found over $180 million in counterfeit goods, drugs, and stolen antiquities. But the real mic drop? A hidden command center beneath our barn, sealed behind a fake wall. Inside, planners, encrypted devices, and a ledger so detailed it made the case airtight. Turns out Marla hadn't just been scamming neighbors, she'd built a criminal empire beneath our feet. And you know what's wild? Her husband, who supposedly died in a car crash 3 years ago, new evidence suggests he was going to turn her in. Witnesses recanted, forensics reopened. That accident? Likely staged. When the trial came, Delaney stood tall in her uniform as the judge personally thanked her for exposing one of the most sophisticated smuggling rings in recent memory. As for me, I watched Marla get led out in cuffs, no pearls, no clipboard, just the blank stare of a woman who thought she was untouchable. Today, that old barn is a protected landmark. We established the Hartley Foundation to educate communities on preserving historical land and recognizing the signs of corruption hiding in plain sight. But the best part? Watching our once divided neighborhood come together, really come together, for the first time. Knowing we beat someone who thought money and power were all that mattered. And yet, sometimes I still wonder. If we hadn't stood our ground, if Delaney hadn't worn that badge, if Wendell hadn't spoken up, would anyone have believed us? Or would we be just another family pushed out and paved over? So yeah, if you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. Do you think HOAs have too much unchecked power? Have you seen something like this where you live? Drop a comment, share this with someone who's been in the fight, and don't forget, sometimes the quiet battles are the ones that matter most.